Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and right here you can see my PSP. Now this PSP is a PSP Street. As you can see, it has been modified, and the nice thing is we can see what exactly the firmware is. So this one here is running the LME 2.3 custom firmware using Infinity 2.0 in order to have it boot up not only from cold boot, but also have it work on a PSP Street. Now this is something, the PSP is a console that I absolutely know and love, and every single PSP I have has been modified. However, there has been a newer development because there's still love going on for the PSP despite there being successors, newer systems, and all that fun stuff. What we are talking about right here is ARK, or specifically ARK-4, the custom firmware for the PSP and PS Vita. And the big difference with ARK-4 is that not only there are a lot more improvements that are being made on this, and this here is a modern custom firmware which is still being developed and worked on, unlike something such as ME, LME, or even Pro. But the nice thing is when the ARK-4 branch ended up releasing, it ended up bringing the ARK custom firmware to the PSP instead of simply being limited to the Vita. You can check some of the features right here, but for example, there's a heavily optimized Inferno 2 driver that works with all known PSP ISO type formats. There's a built-in no DRM engine called Stargate. There is a popcorn controller for custom PS1 games with support for external configuration files and anti-libcrypt protection. And there's just a lot more, such as you could even see here a different type of VSH menu. There's different options within the extras themselves. There's also a bit of a different recovery menu and even a different type of almost cover flow style menu that you can get through on here. So if you're one of those people who you've been using Pro, ME, or LME custom firmware, or maybe even something older such as DAX or M33, you might want to consider giving ARK a shot. And especially if you're running Infinity or Infinity 2.0, we're actually going to be going through the instructions here to get a full flash installation. And the nice thing is, with some more recent developments from the last few years on the PSP side of house, this also does include a new custom IPL, which works on every single model of the PSP. So that means if you have one of the older PSP 1000 models, if you have a 2000 model such as this one, if you have a 3000, if you have a Street such as the one I'm going to demonstrate on right here, or even if you have a PSP Go, this is going to be completely compatible from cold boot on every single one of them. And since this is a custom IPL, it will be a nice upgrade from Infinity. So even if you're on Infinity or Infinity 2.0 and you're happy with it, it might be worth giving this a shot. So I'm going to show you all, if you have an already modified PSP such as this one right here, how you can go through the proper process of installing ARK custom firmware and get a full flash installation by the end of this video. So to do this, you are going to need a few things. First of all, of course, you're going to need your PSP up and running and working. You're also going to need the battery fully charged up, so you will need a working battery for this, and it would be recommended, even once it's charged up, to make sure you plug it into power. I'm personally going to be trusting this one, but that's the recommendation I'm giving to you all. You are also going to need some storage. So whether you're going to have a typical Memory Stick Pro Duo, or if you want to use one of these adapters, which is a Memory Stick Pro Duo to micro adapter, these ones are pretty great. They're more affordable now, and I'm going to have links for everything down below in the description if you are wanting to go through this process. The last thing is, you are going to need a computer or a device to download a few files and transfer them to our storage. So whether you want to connect your Memory Stick Pro Duo or your micro SD card, or even hook up your PSP itself to a computer to do file transfers, you will need a mini USB cable for that, or you're going to need some way of getting this Memory Stick Pro Duo or the micro SD card read on your computer. Again, adapters can work for that, and there will be links down below in the description. With all that being said, let's actually move over to our computer and get these downloads going. The links for everything are going to be down below in the description, and the first thing you're going to need to look at is the ARK-4 GitHub repository, which it states here is a custom firmware for the PSP and PS Vita. Now there's not only a wiki available for this, and there's a wonderful changelog, but it also has the instructions and such on here, features and everything. So if you want to give this a read, I really do recommend giving a few minutes and giving this a full read on here. But you're going to see the instructions right here, which are written out. This is what the video is going to be based on, but if at any point you might be a little confused, be sure to pause, rewind if needed, but you could even read the instructions here, which have been written out on the GitHub page. Once you have all this sorted, at least, you can scroll up to the top, go to releases, and you're going to click on the latest release right here, whatever it might be. Once you click on this, it is going to show some notes from the developer right here. It's also going to show some nice new things that they have added in, so that's always great to see. But you're going to want to download the ARK-4.zip file and save this somewhere you can easily find it. The next thing we're going to need is Chronoswitch or Chronoswitch Downgrader, and specifically we're going to be using the build that has been created by Craziness, or I guess forked from there. This one is a newer one with better support, and I've noticed for my uses it has worked better compared to some issues I was running into before. Now what you can do is on the GitHub repository for this, you can just download the latest release right here, or you can even just come to releases, but you're going to download the latest release, which will be a chronoswitch.zip file. Just save this somewhere you can easily find it. The third thing we're going to need is a PSP official firmware. We're going to need firmware 6.61 for this. Now I'm going to have Darth Sterney's firmware archived linked down below in the description, and there's a couple downloads here that you can grab, but you really only need one of them. Now let's make this simple here. If you have a PSP Go, you're going to want to download the PSP Go firmware. If you do not have a PSP Go, you're going to download the official firmware. This is going to be for the PSP 1000, 2000, 3000, and Street. But again, it's very simple. If you have a Go, get the Go firmware. If you don't have a Go, get the standard firmware. From here, you can just download this from either Archive or Mega. Now, since I have a PSP Street, I'm going to be downloading the standard PSP official firmware for firmware 6.61. I've noticed, at least at the time of recording this, and I might change this later in the future in case this does change, but I've noticed at the time of recording this that the Mega links are down, but the archive.org ones seem to work. Now, once you've completed your download, please keep this page up because we are going to need this MD5 hash to check it later on. The last web page is going to be the MD file checksum page right here, which you can just make sure you have on hand here when we do the hash comparison. From here, we are going to need to make sure we have our storage accessible, so however you're going to be accessing it, make sure that is possible. In my case here, I'm actually going to be hooking this up directly to my computer, so what I'm going to do is grab my mini USB cable, plug this in here, and it should automatically populate, and there we go. Now we can move back over to the computer. Alright, so for your downloads, you should have 3, ARK-4, Chronoswitch, and the 661 PBP or the 661 Go PBP, whichever one you are working with. Now let's go ahead and get Chronoswitch set up. For this, you are going to have to right-click and use your favorite extraction software. I'm going to use 7-zip to extract it into its own folder. You should now have a Chronoswitch folder right here in which you can enter this, and there should be a README and a PSP folder. Inside the PSP folder, go into that, go into the game folder, and grab the Chronoswitch folder. Right-click and copy this out. Now make sure you go over to where your PSP storage is. Mine is connected, and inside of here, you're going to go to PSP, Game, and paste in the Chronoswitch folder. So inside the Chronoswitch folder, you should just have an eboot.pbp. Now in that same game folder, next to the Chronoswitch folder, you need to right-click and create a new folder, and we're going to call this one Update, all one word, in uppercase just like that. And inside of here in the Update folder, you're then going to copy and paste over your 6.61 firmware update. Just give this a few moments to copy. Now we do need to check the file hash on this. For this, what you want to do is go over to whichever firmware you downloaded. Mine is going to be the standard one, and you're going to just double click, right click, and copy out this MD5 hash. Now on the MD5 file checksum page, you can click on this right here, and we're going to navigate over to our PSP storage, PSP, game, update, grab the update file, and wait a few moments for this to hash. And once it does hash, you can open up a notepad such as this, right click, paste, and you can compare this here. Now the case sensitivity does not matter, but as you can see, if you do a comparison of the numbers and letters, they are the same, meaning that this file has not only downloaded, but it has also copied over successfully. So I know this is a good firmware file. We can now go ahead and close out of this once that's been verified. Within the update folder, don't forget this. You'll need to go into that update folder, and after this has been verified, we're going to right click, rename this, and we're going to call it all uppercase eboot.pbp. If you need to make sure the file name extension is proper, within Windows you can go to View, Show, File Name Extensions, and it needs to look exactly like that. So now with Chronoswitch set up, we can close out of this, and now we can go to our ARK zip, right click the ARK-4 zip, and again, just extract this out into its own ARK-4 folder. Go ahead, open up the ARK-4 folder, and you're going to see not only a README right here, which is going to cover a lot, but you're also going to see a whole lot of folders right here. It might seem intimidating, but don't worry, it's fine. It's just a few things to copy over. I'm going to kind of show this right here. So here's the ARK-4 folder, and inside of here, this is going to be my PSP's memory stick. So the first thing we need is the ARK_01234 folder. You're going to want to right click and copy this out, and within your PSP's memory stick, you're going to navigate to PSP, Save Data, right click, and paste it right there. Give it a few moments to copy over. The next thing we need is ARK Loader. For this, you can right click and copy out ARK_loader, go back to your PSP itself, go into PSP, Game, right click and paste. This should be next to Chronoswitch and Update. Next up, from the ARK-4 folder, navigate into the PSP folder, and you're going to want to find ARK_CIPL and also ARK Full Installer. These are the two folders that we need. We're going to first copy out ARK_CIPL, then we're going to go in the PSP to the PSP folder, Game, and paste it right here. Again, next to the loader, update, and Chronoswitch. And we're going to do the exact same thing with the full installer. So your PSP game folder should look exactly like this once you're done. Now, the very last thing we can do as an added bonus is there's a lot of themes that come with this as well too. And there's this themes folder within the root of the ARK-4 folder. Right click, copy out the themes, and you can go anywhere on the memory stick. But here, just in the root of the memory stick, I like to just paste out the themes folder right here. It is a bigger one, so give it a few moments. But once it's copied out, congratulations, your ARK installation should be copied over. From here, we can close out of the ARK-4 folder, we can come back out here, right click, and eject the USB drive. And now the rest of the work is going to be on the PSP. Once you've disconnected the USB cable from your PSP or you've put your storage back in, you're just going to want to navigate over to Game, Memory Stick, and within here, you should see the PSP Update version 6.61. Now that's not what we want. We're going to be looking for the Chronoswitch Downgrader. And from here, you just want to go ahead and launch the Downgrader like any other application. Go ahead, give this a few moments, and once it loads up, it's going to start going through the reports and checking your PSP right here. So if you get any notifications here, such as something telling you that it is going to be a little bit riskier because you have Infinity, if you want to continue on, go ahead and accept that, and you can see here that I have 6.61, and I'm going to reflash 6.61. So I am going to continue to that. There's going to be one more warning right here, and as long as you are okay with that warning, you understand it and you want to proceed, you can go ahead and proceed. At this point, your PSP is going to be running, but it is going to have a black screen. Just wait until something pops up. Don't worry, it is working. And here we go. Within about 20 or 30 seconds, it was able to bring up the 6.61 firmware installation. So for this, you just want to go through the process like any other firmware upgrade. From here, I'm going to go down here, accept, and at this point, do keep in mind you do risk bricking your system because you are going to reflash the firmware and you are going to be removing your custom firmware. So as long as you understand this here, make sure your battery is fully charged up, plug it into power, continue on, and once you're ready to continue on, leave your PSP alone, do not touch it for the next few minutes, just let it run the update. And here we go, once it is done, it should tell you that the update is completed, so you can press X to restart, and you can do exactly what it says. When it restarts, it is going to sit at a black screen here for a while, just go ahead and wait, and after a bit, it should go ahead and reboot. Actually, there we go, it was quicker than I expected. So once it reboots at this point here, do keep in mind you do not have a modified PSP. You can check the select button, and as you can see, there's nothing that comes up. However, this is the fun part because we now have a perfect opportunity and chance to install custom firmware. So we're going to go through the process of getting ARK on here. For this, go down to Game and Memory Stick, and the first thing we're going to need is going to be the ARK loader. Go ahead and tap the ARK loader and let it launch. And there we go. We didn't even have to do anything, but it's going to do a quick soft reboot. And once we get back here, you can press the select button. And as you can see, this VSH menu is coming up. We are on revision 153 at the time of recording this. And you can see right here that this is running custom firmware, which is great and exactly where we need to be. But we do need to make it permanent. In order to do this, go back into the memory stick under the game column. And we're going to go to ARK CFW Flasher. Launch this one just like any other application. From here, it's going to give you the notification that this is the CFW Flasher, and we're going to press X to install the CFW. Go ahead, tap that, it's going to install it, and it's going to then do a full reboot on your system. Wait a few seconds for that. And there we go, your system should reboot, and this time around on cold boot, it should allow you to have custom firmware right off the rip. So if we do this here, as you can see, yet again, we have the VSH menu available to us. But the last thing we're now going to do is do a full flash installation. And in order to do that, go back down to Game, Memory Stick, and the last program we haven't run is going to be the ARK Full Installer. Go ahead and open up ARK Full Installer and wait. And right here, it's going to be a pretty simple menu, but you can just go ahead and tap X to install and wait a few moments. It's going to go through that process, it's going to exit, and at this point you now have a fully fledged permanent custom firmware PSP running the latest build of ARK-4, and it's going to be working on cold boot, which is really nice. In order to test that as well too, I'm even going to show you all. We can go right here, I'm going to go to Shutdown Device and tap the X button. So now it is completely shut down. There's no light at the top, and you can see here what I'm going to do is turn this on. Once it's turned on, we see the green power light there. Once it focuses, there we go, memory stick is going off. And you can see Sony Computer Entertainment. This comes up here. And if we hit the select button, we have the VSH menu, which means this system is running a full custom firmware completely on cold boot. So it is a permanent firmware. We don't have to worry about redoing this here, thankfully. Now, if you're someone who's coming from an older firmware such as Pro, ME, or LME, I'm going to show you a few things. One of the things that I recommend you do is hit that select button. And once you're inside of here, if you're one of those people like me where you might have had some plugins, you're going to want to go to Import Classic Plugins. Tap the X button right there. It is going to reboot. Give it a few moments. And there we go. Once it ends up rebooting, if you had any plugins on your memory stick, they should now be imported. And you can actually manage them. If you go back in here, you can go to Select. You can go down to the Recovery menu, give this a launch. And if we wait a few moments, here we go. This is our newer looking recovery menu. So you can change your custom firmware settings. You can go to the plugin manager right here. If there's any examples like the one shown, you can check that out. There's even a pro shell where you can check this out. And if you don't have your memory stick plugged in with that save data, this is what's going to come up for your recovery menu. But let's go ahead and exit out of here. And I'm going to go hit back or exit on this one as well. Now, I did mention the themes, and the odd thing is I'm actually doing this on the street, so it's going to be a little more limited. So for this part, I'm actually going to have to show you how the themes and such work on my Go. This one already has ARK-4 installed on it, so we're going to give this a fire up, and I'll show you where to go on here. You can see, since this one is online ready, we have the network column, we have the PlayStation Network column, and we also have the extras features right here, which gives you custom firmware settings. So from here, you can go through and change your custom firmware settings and give this a nice look. You can also go into the plugins manager, and this is where you can manage some of them, such as Cheat Device Remastered. This one did not show up before for me, but when I did that import trick, that's when it showed up, which is why I told you all to do that if you're coming from another custom firmware. And this here is the custom launcher, which is optional, and you can give this a launch. And from here, you'll see it looks a little bit different than the standard XMB. Mine has already been themed, but you can see right here, you can load up your games, your homebrew, as well as PS1 games right here. So it might be a little confusing to set up a theme like this one here, but in order to do that, you are going to have to hit the triangle button. You're going to want to go to Files, And within the file manager here, I guess I end up selecting the black one. I'm going to go back here, but typically it should look like this, where you're going to have the root of your memory stick. So I'm going to go into my themes folder, and from here you can pick any that you want to. For mine, I'm going to pick ARK Revamped. So you go in here, you find the theme.ark, tap X, and go down to install. Or you can preview it if you want to. But as you can see, that is installed. It changed it up a little bit here, and you can give that a nice look if you so choose to. So I'm going to actually go back to that black one because I do favor that quite a bit, but in order to change them out, yet again, you just find it right here. This is it here. The black one is what I preferred. I'm going to go down, theme, install, and as you can see, that's able to install your theme, so you should be good at that point. I'll go back to my games right here, and at this point, you can use this to launch your games. But personally, for me, I still love the XMB, so I'm just going to hit triangle, go to exit, and I'm just going to exit the custom launcher itself. That's another nice feature that the ARK custom firmware has. Although one thing to note is that it seems like it's not going to work on the Street itself, so you might just want to keep that in mind, but it looks like if you have a 1, 2, 3,000 or a Go, you should have access to that. Either way, that is about it for this video here. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Hopefully it helped out. Hopefully you now have your PSP still running, still operational, but this time with a fancy new custom IPL and running the latest build of the ARK-4 custom firmware. That's about it for this video here. This is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too.